Success often doesn't come from pushing harder. It comes from removing the interference that gets in the way and slows you down. That interference isn't out there in the world, it's inside your mind. Tony Robbins put it in a really memorable way when he said, "The chokehold on any business is the psychology of its leader." Let that sink in for a moment. The bottleneck in your business or your career or your life could be the way you handle pressure, how you process fear, or what you believe about your ability to lead. And this isn't just about performance. It's about the ripple effect your inner game has on everything you touch, every area of your life.
Welcome to Beyond Success, the podcast for high achievers seeking deeper meaning, fulfillment, and purpose. Now, here's your host, world-renowned leadership coach and therapist, Tian, Ph.D.
When it comes to success in business or in life, most people focus on tactics, strategies, and skills. They invest in tools, build their networks, chase opportunities. But the thing is, none of that will work if you're holding yourself back on the inside. In this episode, we're diving into something most achievers overlook: the inner game. This is the foundation of every success you'll ever build. Whether you're leading a company, managing a team, or leading a family or relationship, mastering your inner game could be the difference between thriving and burning out. When you strengthen your inner game, you unlock clarity, resilience, anti-fragility, and the ability to perform at your best, no matter what challenges come your way. You'll tap into your flow, make better decisions, and create success that's not only sustainable, but meaningful. If you ignore what we covered today, you risk sabotaging yourself when it matters most. You'll hit invisible ceilings in your career or business or life. You'll make decisions from a place of fear or overwhelm instead of confidence and vision. And you'll keep chasing external wins while feeling like something really important is missing. I'm Tian, and for almost the past 2 decades, I've been helping high achievers find fulfillment, success, and happiness in their personal and professional lives. And in this episode, I've got 3 points. Let's dive into the first, and this is on inner game. If you take away just one thing from this episode, let it be this: your internal world determines your external results. Let's unpack this. Many decades ago, Timothy Galway coined the term inner game in his book, a super famous book, The Inner Game of Tennis, and the subsequent series on inner game, and his insights have stood the test of time. He discovered that most of the obstacles holding people back from success aren't actually external. They're internal. It's not the competition, the economy, or the client that's standing in your way. It's the voice in your head telling you you're not ready, or what if you fail, or what if you succeed and people expect even more from you? Here's the twist. Success often doesn't come from pushing harder. It comes from removing the interference that gets in the way and slows you down. That interference isn't out there in the world, it's inside your mind. Tony Robbins put it in a really memorable way when he said, "The chokehold on any business is the psychology of its leader." Let that sink in for a moment. The bottleneck in your business or your career or your life could be the way you handle pressure, how you process fear, or what you believe about your ability to lead. And this isn't just about performance. It's about the ripple effect your inner game has on everything you touch, every area of your life. If your internal dialogue is filled with doubt or negativity, it shows up in your decisions. It impacts how you communicate with others, how you approach risk, and even how or whether you see opportunities. Let's make this even more practical. Start by asking yourself, what's the voice in your head saying? That voice, the internal dialogue that's running in the background, could actually be your biggest ally, or it could be the very thing that's holding you back. In IFS therapy, a great evidence-based psychotherapeutic model and method, it stands for Internal Family Systems Therapy. I've talked about it a lot on this podcast. In IFS therapy, that voice of doubt is what's called a protector part. Many experts call it the inner critic. Its job actually isn't to destroy you. The inner critic, protector part, is trying to protect you from failure, embarrassment, or pain, or shame. The problem is, it often does this in ways that keep you stuck. It whispers, "Don't try this. It's too risky." Or, "You'll mess this up just like last time." Does any of this sound familiar? Sometimes it's not just the inner critic part at work. There might be deeper burdens weighing you down. what IFS calls unattached burdens. I covered this in the previous episode. These are beliefs or fears or emotions that don't even belong to you. Maybe you pick them up from your parents or teachers or the greater society or community from your past experiences. They hang around you like invisible baggage, shaping how you think and act without you even realizing it. And this connects directly to what I covered in the previous episode on the upper limit problem. If you missed that last episode, here's a really super quick recap. The upper limit problem happens when we unconsciously sabotage ourselves as we approach new levels of success. You hit a glass ceiling you didn't even know was there. Suddenly, you procrastinate on the big project, or you blow up at a team member over something small, or you find yourself stuck in analysis paralysis. Why does this happen? It's because some part of you doesn't feel safe at the next level. Maybe it's a fear of failure. Maybe it's a fear of success. What will people expect of you if you really deliver? Either way, your inner game is throwing on the brakes, even if your external efforts are pushing the pedal to the floor. So how do you start breaking through this? Here are 2 steps you can take right now. Step 1, listen to your self-talk. Pay attention to the automatic thoughts running through your mind during the day. Monitor them, observe. Not just the loud ones when you're stressed, but the quieter ones too, the ones you hardly notice. What do they say when you're about to step into an important meeting, or when you're working on a big project? Write down what you hear. Don't judge them. Just get them out in the open first. You might notice patterns. Maybe your inner voice says things like, I can't keep up, or I'm going to fail. These are interfering beliefs that are trying to protect you, but they're doing it in ways that no longer serve you. Okay, and the second step is to get curious about the fear. If you're bumping up against an upper limit, ask yourself, what's the fear here? Often the fear isn't what it seems on the surface. Maybe you're afraid of disappointing someone, or maybe you're afraid that success will change how people see you. Keep peeling back the layers until you get to the root. Here's a quick example. I worked with a leader who felt paralyzed every time he was about to close a major deal. When we dug into it, he realized he wasn't afraid of failing. He was afraid of succeeding and losing the freedom that he valued so much. The freedom of time and the flexibility of his schedule and having fewer responsibilities than he would if he were promoted. And that realization was a huge breakthrough for him. Once he understood the fear, he could address it directly and then move forward without this internal sabotaging resistance. As we go deeper into this episode, I want you to remember this. Success isn't about adding more pressure. It's about removing the resistance within. That voice in your head doesn't have to control you. Those limiting beliefs are not permanent. And the glass ceiling you've been hitting is actually not real.
Many high achievers struggle when it comes to managing their emotions or navigating their relationships, and they hit a wall when it comes to emotional mastery. Maybe you've noticed that stress, frustration, or anger is seeping into your personal or professional life, or you feel disconnected from those you care about. That's where David Tian's Emotional Mastery Program comes in. It's based on peer-reviewed, evidence-backed therapeutic methods to help you find happiness, love, and real fulfillment. Learn how to break free from the emotional roller coaster and start thriving in every area of your life. You can find out more at davidtianphd.com/emotional mastery. That's DAVIDTIANPhD.com/emotional mastery.
Let's move to the second point, how to leverage flow and wu-wei for peak performance. If you've ever experienced that feeling where everything just clicks, where time slows down and you're completely in the moment, then you know what I'm referring to. That's flow, capital F flow. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, the psychologist who coined the term decades ago, called it the optimal state for creativity, productivity, and fulfillment. And Csikszentmihalyi is a legendary researcher. Flow is powerful, whether you're leading a business, working on a big project, or stepping back into the dating world after a divorce or breakup. Entering a flow state can completely change your whole experience of life. In a flow state, your confidence grows naturally. You don't have to force it. Your actions feel authentic and effortless. And when that happens, other people, whether clients, colleagues, or your intimate partner, can sense it. But most people don't live in flow. They live in a state of friction, trying to force things, overthinking every move, second-guessing themselves. That's especially true in dating. If you're obsessing over how you're coming across, like crafting the perfect text message or replaying every interaction in your head, then you're cutting yourself off from entering the state of flow. The same is true in business. Overanalyzing kills momentum. So how do you create flow on a consistent basis? Csikszentmihalyi's groundbreaking research shows it happens when your skill level matches the challenge at hand. Too easy and you get bored, too hard and you get overwhelmed. But when the balance is just right, you can lose yourself in the process. And then it's no longer about the outcome or the result. It's about the experience itself, and you lose track of time. Now, flow isn't just a concept in the relatively modern scientific discipline of psychology. Flow is also deeply connected to an ancient Taoist idea called wu-wei, which predates flow by over 2,000 years. Wu-wei is often translated as effortless action or non-doing. But don't mistake this for laziness. It's not about doing nothing. It's about doing what's natural and effective without forcing things. Like a great surfer riding a wave, they're working with the ocean, not against it. This concept can have powerful results when it's applied in business and dating. Let's start with dating. In fact, I've co-authored an academic article on flow, wu-wei, and dating in a book published by Wiley Blackwell called The Philosophy of Dating. Wu-wei is about trusting your cultivated instincts, about letting go of the need to control every interaction, and instead allowing the connection to unfold naturally. You're attractive because you're authentic. You don't need to put on some kind of performance. And that's the kind of energy that people are drawn to, that they're attracted to. Let's look at this in a professional context. In business, wu-wei means playing to your strengths and aligning with your long-term vision instead of chasing quick wins or forcing strategies or force-fitting strategies that don't fit you. I've seen this play out with clients time and time again. One client, let's call him James, came to me after a tough divorce. He wanted to get back into the dating world, but he was stuck in his head, overthinking everything. He treated dating like a business negotiation, strategizing, planning, and analyzing. But that approach doesn't work when it comes to attraction. Women could sense that he wasn't present. His conversations felt forced. We shifted his focus to flow and wu-wei instead. I encouraged him to stop over-preparing and just start trusting himself more. Instead of scripting every conversation or text message, he practiced being in the moment. Instead of focusing on outcomes, like asking, "Will she like me?" Instead, he focused on enjoying the interaction itself, immersing himself in the interaction. And the result was, he not only became more confident, partly because he was no longer self-conscious, he was just present fully in the interaction, but women started responding to him in a completely different way. He wasn't trying so hard anymore, and that made all the difference. The same principles apply to leadership. Another client, a CEO, was struggling with burnout because he was constantly trying to control, micromanage every aspect of his business. He micromanaged his team and overanalyzed every decision. I helped him reframe his approach using wu-wei, and he started delegating more, trusting his instincts, trusting his team, focusing on what truly mattered instead. And not only did his stress level drop, but his company started growing faster because his team felt empowered. Here's the actionable insight for you. Align your efforts with your strengths, values, and vision. This alignment is the key to effortless mastery. When you're working with the grain of reality instead of against it, things just flow naturally. You make decisions faster, with less stress. You connect with people more deeply, whether it's in the boardroom or on a date. Let's wrap this up with the third and final point. Mastering inner game unlocks leadership potential, team success, and dating or social success. If you're a leader, whether in business, your community, or your family, your inner game sets the tone for everyone else around you. It's not just about how you handle yourself in tough situations. It's about how your energy ripples outward. The way you show up, your confidence, calmness, emotional steadiness, all of that affects how others show up too. The truth is, if you struggle with self-doubt, stress, or fear, people pick up on it, even if you try to hide it. Your team feels it in your tone of voice, the decisions you make, even your body language, your sub-communications, your facial expressions. It creates an invisible tension that undermines trust and collaboration. On the flip side, when you've mastered your inner game, you inspire confidence without saying a word. You create a sense of safety that allows others to perform at their best. The same dynamic applies in dating. A man who's physically good-looking but filled with self-doubt or neediness will sabotage his overall attractiveness. Women might notice him at first, but they'll quickly sense that something's off. Contrast that with a man who's physically average but radiates confidence, ease, and playfulness. He doesn't try too hard. He's having fun and enjoying himself. And that kind of unself-conscious energy is magnetic. Why? Because people, whether team members or potential romantic partners, aren't drawn to perfection. That's a false belief that many shame-based achievers have imbibed. Instead, people are drawn to authenticity. And authenticity comes from mastering your inner game. So what does inner mastery look like? It starts with emotional resilience and anti-fragility. This doesn't mean that you never feel stressed or upset. You're human after all. It means you know how to navigate those emotions without being consumed by them. When challenges arise, you can stay grounded and make decisions from a place of clarity, not panic. And as a result, this clarity allows you to see the opportunities in the midst of the challenges and how you actually become stronger through going through the adversity. Next is self-awareness. Leaders who understand their triggers, strengths, and blind spots have a massive advantage. They don't waste time fighting battles within themselves. Instead, they focus their energy on what really matters. And finally, great leaders cultivate trust in others. Trust begins with consistency, reliability, responsibility, but it also requires vulnerability. Sharing your struggles, admitting when you're wrong, and owning your growth process, these aren't signs of weakness. They're signs of strength. They create a culture where others feel safe to do the same. Let's bring this back to social and romantic success. Someone who masters his inner game exudes emotional steadiness. He doesn't get thrown off by a moment of awkwardness. He doesn't seek validation because he already feels secure in who he is. And this allows him to focus fully on the person he's with, listening, connecting, creating a sense of presence that's rare in today's world. Compare that to someone who's constantly seeking reassurance, trying too hard to impress, or overthinking every word. That kind of energy pushes people away. No matter how impressive you might think you are, or the resume, or your wardrobe, or how impressive you think your Instagram feed might be. Mastering your inner game isn't about becoming flawless. It's about becoming anchored in your values, emotions, and a sense of purpose. And that's what makes you naturally attractive in relationships and magnetic as a leader. To flesh this out for you, let me share a quick story about a client of mine. We'll call him Mark. Mark was a successful entrepreneur, but his relationships were a mess. He felt disconnected from his team, and after his divorce, dating for him felt like a battlefield. He was constantly stuck in his head, trying to micromanage and control everything, and it showed in his life. So we worked on his inner game, starting with mindfulness practices and doing internal family systems therapy, and he began to notice his patterns, how he would overthink, and how his inner critic kept telling him that he wasn't enough. Slowly, he learned to quiet that voice. He learned to understand it and show it appreciation, and then that inner critic part of him started to trust him more. And then he started showing up differently in life, not just in business, but on dates too. He became more present, more confident, and more fun to be around. He was able to relax more, be more easygoing, because he was more at ease with himself, more accepting and appreciating of his own parts, including the inner critic part. And the result was his team began responding to him in new ways. They trusted him even more, took ownership of their own work, and started performing at a higher level as a team. And in his personal life, he went from dreading dates to actually enjoying them, and eventually met someone who connected with him for who he really was, and they're going strong to this day. So let's quickly recap what we covered today. First, we talked about the inner game, how your internal dialogue and mindset either drive your success or block it. Whether it's the inner critic, an upper limit problem, or subconscious fears, these are the invisible forces that determine how far you can go. Success isn't about trying harder. It's about removing those internal blocks so that you can naturally fulfill your full potential. Second, we explored flow and wu-wei. When you align your skills with the right challenges and stop forcing outcomes, you unlock effortless action and peak performance. This applies to business, relationships, even dating. People are naturally drawn to those who are fully present and aligned with their authentic energy and values. Finally, we dove into mastering inner game for leadership, team success, and social confidence. The way you handle your emotions and show up as a leader sets the tone for everyone around you. And the same goes for dating. Your confidence, emotional steadiness, and authenticity and comfort with your vulnerability are actually what make you magnetic. Here's something I want you to take really seriously. Improving your inner game isn't something you have to do alone. In fact, you probably shouldn't. I personally worked with over a dozen incredible mentors, coaches, and therapists over the past 2 decades. They helped me uncover my blind spots that I couldn't see on my own, break old, stuck patterns, and build the life I have today. The truth is, inner game mistakes are hard to undo once bad habits of thought or emotion are deeply ingrained. Professional guidance can save you years or decades of frustration and help you create meaningful, lasting change quickly. So if you're serious about growth, whether in your career, your relationships, or your personal fulfillment, invest in yourself. Find someone who can guide you through the process. Your future self will definitely thank you for it. Thank you so much for listening. If this has helped you in any way, please share it with anyone else that you think could benefit from it. If you liked it, hit a like or give it a good rating on whatever platform you're listening to this on. And I'd love to hear your feedback. So send me a message or leave a comment. I'd love to hear what you think. I look forward to welcoming you to the next episode. Until then, David Tian, signing out.